Breaking news.
I did have some breaking news. That is true. And breaking news. Disney and Scarlett Johansson have resolved their bitter profits lawsuit.
Yeah.
And rumor has it, though of course all these things are sealed, that it did work out in the Black Widow's favor.
She's a killer. She's a killer.
Yes. So apparently their differences and things have been resolved. Originally, the lawsuit was kind of pushed back till like March. So there was some concern about how long this was going to drag out. But it looks like things have been solved kind of under the table and behind closed doors. There's no, obviously, indication of how much money was involved, but according to Deadline News, there is some hint that the deal will be in the $40 million range in her favor, though obviously not paid in a lump sum kind of a thing. So there's probably some stuff going on, and if you were watching this closely, like some of us were a little bit more so than others, it was kind of in the cards. Everybody knew Black Widow was not really getting a sequel, because how many movies can you shove in the period of time between when the world, Thanos snapped and she died? You're not going to put, a whole interconnected trilogy necessarily in that period of time. But Disney had actually apparently signed on Emma Stone for a sequel for Cruella, which included a lot more of kind of those streaming things to kind of, because there was talk originally of her possibly signing on to this kind of a lawsuit, because she didn't necessarily have that to begin with. Well, apparently they had signed with her, and it was, looking like there might be some favorable outcomes, because when it comes down to it, Disney can only handle being looked down upon for so long. It's just not in their makeup, which is really the only power that any of their kind of stars have to some extent. And if you can get a loud enough voice, you can get the mouse to relent.
Or pay you to go away,
or pay you to go away, or pay you to continue, because there was talk even too that that she's looking forward to continuing her work with them now that all of this is behind them. And that, there was something else about, I think, what was it, Tower of Terror or something else she was working on with them that, Tower of Terror, to, work with that project and other future ones with Disney. So, I'm sure part of it was, yes, this was ugly. Yes, we're sad this happened, but, we've resolved this now. So help us work to, recover some of the face we lost when we were stupid, and make it right. And it's hopefully Disney, the new leadership, if you will, kind of learns from some of this and is able to head things off in the future and not allow it to get to this point, and pay people fairly who either write the material that earns you the billions or act the material that's written that earns you billions. And when it comes down to it, it's not worth it all. So good news, great news. I think we called it here that eventually they would go ahead and kind of work this out, and very, very glad that they have, and especially in Scarlett Johansson's favor. So good news all around.
I'm actually very happy for her. I mean, I was somewhat following the story, and I really did not like the way that Disney tried to shame her. An agreement is an agreement. She had an agreement with Disney, and I just didn't like the way that Disney basically shamed her, basically telling them that, people are suffering from the pandemic, and all you're thinking about is blah, 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 blah. Well, that, an agreement is an agreement. And I'm just glad that she she won this. So
exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate to say it, but I would almost expect a corporation to try and just take the money, when they get a chance. But if part of your overall business model is your branding, and you're a public-facing organization that requires, people to want to come and see you, you got to just be smarter. You get and what's the win if you take one of the properties of one of the largest franchises in the history of cinema and you just publicly chastise them, and again, this being one of the few female-led superhero movies ever, and just basically come at them like some guy from the 50s.
And alienate your fan base.
And from a franchise that is all about, they're trying to teach girls that they can be strong and that they can do all these things. And
just don't ask for the money that the men get. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Like there was no win for Disney in this from anywhere from the beginning till now, and it probably cost them more than if they would have settled this before it even got to this point.
Of course,
100%.
I mean, it's like they're in a field of rakes and they just keep stepping on their.
Yes, it was so short-sighted. It was surprising, but hopefully it was just new leadership who didn't necessarily understand the philosophy of the mouse, and maybe now they've gotten it and things can be smooth from here on out.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, it's business, it's not friendship. So they will work with her again if it puts butts in the seats.
Yep. And I think they have to. I think part of their thing has to be to continue showing that, look, we're still working together. Look, we've worked this out. We were wrong, but we made it right. And everything is fine. And everybody's happy.
If she's willing, y'all. She might not be. She might be like, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not like she needs them. She'll get plenty of other movie deals.
Yeah.
I mean, her official statement, was she's proud of the work they've done and enjoyed her creative relationship and look forward to continuing collaboration for years to come. So,
say,
of course,
you Disney.
No, you're absolutely right. She's not going to say that. But look, it's both in her interest and Disney's interest for her to both say and do that.
Yes.
Because everybody was watching this to such an extent, they're going to watch the future. And if she says that and then never does another project with Disney, well, that says something too.
That says something more about Disney than it does her.
It absolutely does. But if she were, ungracious about it and was just her statement was, well, it's about time to pay me my money, that's a whole different thing on her brand too. So
but I don't think that might be it. Not ungracious. It could be, you've wronged me and therefore I no longer trust you and therefore I no longer want to work with you. That's not ungracious. That's statement of fact. Burn me once, that's your fault. Burn me twice, that's my fault, right?
True.
So I would not be surprised if she decided not to.
True. And Disney completely, screwed the pooch on this. I don't like that expression, but it seems a pro. I think but again, Disney has been doing obviously these Marvel movies for a while. I think, and to your point, Logan, about them being short-sighted, greed does that. Greed does make you short-sighted because you're trying to say, hey, we can save 40, 50 million just by not, honoring that kind of contract that we said about cinema box office versus streaming revenue. So they were just like, what are you gonna do? And she showed them what she was gonna do, and they were like, ooh, yeah, that hurts. We'll play nice. And I have a feeling that she's been around. She's been in the industry since what?
Sure.
We have a zoo, right, with Matt Damon. So
I'm sure before that.
Yeah, exactly. So she knows the business. I honestly don't think she would, as long as they're signing checks, it's not like they're going to happy hour together. I think she would probably work for them.
There might be some pride in there. There might be some principle in there. I mean,
yeah, but
if you want to talk about greed, I mean, if that's not her motivation, then there can be other motivating factors.
It absolutely could be. I'm just saying, I've seen people. Remember, I had that thing that in talking about Swordfish earlier. I had that issue with Halle Berry and her principles, all up until Swordfish, and then she's like, "Yeah, here are my principles," and there you go.
So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yes.
And what I also think will be interesting is if she does work with them again, what that contract looks like and what that compensation looks like.
Well, I think also one of the great things is she has essentially established that in this new world of
Streaming.
this media, you have that's a new factor because it was not up until that point. So she's basically setting the standard for especially women leads.
Sure.
To have their rear end covered when it comes to these contracts because it was such an obsequious kind of a thing.
And look, when it comes down to it, her agent negotiated those contracts.
Right.
So that was probably short-sighted on the agent's part to not necessarily include those kind of streaming things because, I mean, Disney streaming went from nowhere to, I mean, Black Widow did what, $125 million in the first couple weekends? Like, it went from nowhere 2 or 3 years ago, there was no Disney Plus,
right, to
being able to do that kind of money. So in some ways too, it's probably her on her agents being like, look, you weren't ahead on this, other people were. Some of the rumors I was reading said that Dwayne Johnson's agency was, had streaming rights in there for Jungle Cruise, which is why, he said nothing but good things about Disney.
Now Logan, the only reason I'm thinking that may or may not be the case is because I have a feeling that Scarlett signed probably earlier, like not way before, but
it was probably pre-pandemic.
And I heard
heard
that Dwayne was able to renegotiate after the movie came out. So I'm hearing that I think that was one of the controversies is I think Dwayne kind of had the same deal, but for some mystical reason they allowed Dwayne.
Oh yeah, nobody can figure out what that reason might be.
Totally random. They just said, okay, Wayne, sure, you can renegotiate based on the new streaming platforms, but Scarlett, no, we're just going to take the money and and again
that's
the mouse.
Very, very possible too.
Well,
and we are far enough removed from this that speculation is king.
Yes.
But yes, either way, it is good to see it righted. And hopefully, again, one of the things that early on, I think a lot of people who are watching this with no vested interest whatsoever were hoping this would allow the smaller actor, the really, really little fish to be able to point to these kinds of things and be like, look, I realize that, my indie movie that you purchased for a bag of peanuts might make a shell. But you know what? I want a fraction of that shell on streaming rights. And hopefully that starts to make that trend happen through the industry because, look, when it comes down to it, those little guys and those little actors are the ones who become the stars later and the ones who, are really doing it.
Absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, with this new delivery system and being able to bypass, and again, don't get me wrong, theater chains, I mean, they employ people, they're a cultural event. I love my theater. I literally just came from a theater today.
Yeah.
But being able to get the smaller films out there to the public,
yes,
via this new delivery system, I think it can be a fantastic thing. Now, everything will find its balance. You'll still have theaters, maybe just not as much. But yeah, we should make a movie and put that out on streaming.
Let's do it.
I already got.
Wouldn't be my first.
There you go. But that was pre-pandemic. Now that we've got the pandemic on our side, we can
on our side. Interesting choice of words.
We'll call it Pandemic Studios. There you go.
I'm sure that's been taken by some independent zombie film somewhere.
Yeah. Yes.
The Avengers.
Yes. The Avengers.
Yes.